Okay.
Whenever you're ready.
Uki, Napi, Nistu, Botanis, greetings. My name is Anthony Melting Tallow. That's my given name. My Blackfoot name is Botanis, and it means flying chief. And I was given that name 2 years ago by my people, and it's a protection name. And I live so far away from my home territory of southern Alberta, Canada. So the head medicine man gave me the name Flying Chief because I've flown a long distance to be away from my homelands to live here and work here in New England. So in order to give me a name that I could travel with protection, it's only the second time that the name Flying Chief's ever been given to another Indigenous male, and that was back in the 1800s.
In,
So,
uh,
in Blackfoot,
in Blackfoot?
yeah. Uh,
Do you know what the circumstances around the first guy?
he was a warrior chief. Yeah, he earned. He was a diplomat, I was told, and he earned quite a few eagle feathers for his not only his war deeds, but also his diplomacy. So he earned quite a few war honors, and that was recognized with eagle feathers. So I guess he earned several honors, enough to be given the name Flying Chief.
I'm just going to adjust the mic
Oh, sure.
for a second. So what brought you out here to the Pioneer Valley?
I originally lived in New York State. I moved to the U.S. in 1998. I came down after art school, so arts education, and the Northeast is a place to be for artistic expression. So I came down on the advice of several students, and so I gradually made my way to the Pioneer Valley over that time.
Are you an artist now?
Yeah, I'll be exhibiting with Justin in April. So we'll be getting a group show together in, I think it's in Holyoke.
And is that through a gallery that you two, or like a studio that you two work together, or just like personally?
Yeah, we both work independently. I do mixed media on canvas, some digital work incorporated into mixed media pieces. So it's actually just a space that's, I think it's in, as far as I know, it's in a doctor's office, but there's enough wall space that they need quite a few pieces to fill up the walls. So,
cool.
But I live and work in Springfield. I actually live in Chicopee, but I work in Springfield. I do outreach for adults with mental health diagnoses who live independently in the community. So I work in a nonprofit to deliver services so that they help them live independently. And I've been doing that for the past 11 years. But prior to that helps pay the bills, and it's also fulfilling on a personal level to be able to make a difference in the lives of people who are striving to achieve a lot of the same things that we take for granted, like their own independence. So we support them in that.
Mm-hmm. How did you meet Oregon Thunder or get in touch with them?
Yeah, I actually we have a mutual friend, Paula Gabby, and she was present at a lot of the events that I was attending at the Josephine White Eagle and at the UMass. It's at the Chadbourne Hall on UMass campus, and it's in the residential. It's a facility in the residential basement, and it has a lot of community events. So I was attended a couple events there, and Paula actually knows Justin, so she asked. I indicated my interest in drumming and singing to her, and she put, you know, that in Justin's ear, and then through Justin worked through John to ask me through social media if I'd be interested in joining Urban Thunder.
Did you have singing and drumming experience before that?
None. I didn't. Growing up, our experiences were, we grew up in the city, so we didn't grow up on the reservation. We didn't grow up surrounded by the Blackfoot culture. We're plains, so our culture does include the drum and the ceremony surrounding the drum. So I grew up exposed to it, but not like immersed in it on the reservation.
You and your family grew up in the city?
Yeah, yeah.
And do you live with your family out here, or is it just you?
No, I live away from any any Blackfoot relatives.
Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just wondering. You know, because Justin has his kids, has a wife and kids. Yeah, John has his kids. I want to come back to, you know, what you said about growing up in the city at some point, but for the sake of time,
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about what you're speaking about tonight?
Yeah. I've been invited to address a gathering, a student-organized gathering, to talk about efforts to divest from the Dakota Access Pipeline Energy Transfer Partners, there's a network of financial institutions, both here in the United States and internationally, that are investing and using bank customers' money essentially to fund the construction of the pipeline. And to date, there's been cities and municipalities in the United States have divested over nearly $6 million from the banks. So they're basically doing what we're asking individual investors to do, and they've basically taken their money out of the banks that are financing the construction. And
One second, I want to close the door to get this. So so are you involved in efforts to pressure banks?
Yeah, we've organized a couple of grassroots events. Justin and John, we attended, we drum and sang at a divestment effort that on Main Street in front of TD Bank in Northampton, and then we marched after that to Pulaski Park, where we set up the drum, and we drummed and we sang.
Is that the one where they? I think I saw a video of it online where people like linked arms and sat in front of the revolving door.
No, this was an independent action, direct action apart from that. There's a group in the valley that does do more. They do peaceful, but almost like a theatrical form of protest. And what they'll do is they have empty oil drums, and they use black tempera paint and corn syrup to simulate oil slick. They pour it over themselves. It's almost like a performance, and then they crime scene off the area that they've occupied in front of a bank on the sidewalk. So they've set it up so that protest is lawful. People are allowed to gather and protest, lawful protest, in public on a public sidewalk. It's as long as they're not impeding the flow of foot traffic. There's no risk of necessarily arrest. So that's what we were conscious of when we organized the divestment action in front of TD Bank. And so our action was apart from that. That was the organizers wanted an indigenous voice first and foremost at the TD Bank action that we took. But the more
Yeah,
I wouldn't
theatrical
necessarily
inclined
coin them
people.
theatrical, but it's like a powerful performance because seeing people covered in simulated oil and their hands are linked inside oil drums, and then they're talking about the reasons they're there and gaining awareness about what's going on.
Or that expense, or they link their hands through like PVC piping, like
Yeah,
pipeline.
and we're not affiliated in any way with those groups. As Urban Thunder, they've been in the news media for chaining themselves to the doors of TD Bank, Bank of America, but we're not affiliated with them. We're not speaking for them or representing them in any way. Yeah.
So you guys take the drum out and sing and stuff.
Yeah. As part of, we know and we sing Lakota, Dakota, Nakota songs in their language. So we sing those in solidarity for the Sioux Nation that's been fighting the Dakota Access Pipeline.
So what besides the actual kind of protests themselves, what kind of organizing events are there in the valley around this issue? Are they mostly like held at the colleges?
They seem to be. I think a lot of the. I think just the general sense on college campuses, especially in this era of under Trump. I mean, colleges represent one of the three pillars of free thought in this country, and those three pillars include a free press, a court system, laws, and the universities. So those three pillars represent, the three foundations of free thought, free speech, and freedom under the Constitution in this country. And those three pillars of freedom in this country are under threat under the Trump administration. So I think because of that, university students are more proactive and more curious and more aware of the issues surrounding climate change, all this pipeline infrastructure, just the focus on a non-renewable resource, a resource that contributes to, carbon emissions, and the potential for a mass environmental disaster in a body of water on unceded territory land where the Sioux were guaranteed the use of that land. Red Cloud was a Sioux warrior who took on the United States Army, and it basically, he put them at a disadvantage, so they sent word to organize a treaty to guarantee peace and to set aside land that would be unspoiled by settlement. And this was in 1868, Fort Laramie Treaty, that guaranteed them the Black Hills and this area between South Dakota and North Dakota, present day. But gold was discovered in the Black Hills. So what ended up happening was settlers ended up invading and encroaching the protected land, and there were skirmishes, and so basically the treaty, Fort Laramie Treaty of 1868, was broken because that land was seized, and the Sioux took the United States government to court, and the Supreme Court decided that the land was in fact stolen from the Sioux, and they said, here's several $billions in exchange for that land, And the Sioux responded by saying, there's some things more important than money. The Black Hills are sacred to us. We want those back. So the money sits in trust. And the Sioux are one of the, I think, the second poorest county in the United States. And it's they took a stand for what's important to them. The Black Hills are at the heart of what's sacred to them. And so they're taking a stand even today. So what?
Because they still have the option to access that money, but it's principle.
It's entirely. They're recognizing what their ancestors fought for, to give them, preserve their land, preserve their culture, preserve the future for the next coming generations. And as Indigenous people, we protecting the land, it's a sacred duty. So when the Standing Rock Sioux put out a call for support for people to actually come to Standing Rock and support them and stand with them in solidarity against construction of the Dakota Access Pipeline, which when we responded to the call, I went out there in November over Thanksgiving, and prior to my going, there had been the Standing Rock Sioux tribe, Dave Archambault, the chairman of the Standing Rock Sioux tribe, had filed paperwork with Army Corps of Engineers on a Friday saying that they had evidence to prove that there were rock cairns and sacred sites and burial sites along the path, the coming pathway of the pipeline. And then they thought, okay, we'll hear from the court on Monday, and and then come Saturday morning, word came and that there were bulldozers on this contested land that they had their own independent archaeological study done on the land, saying that we know this area, we know where the sacred sites are. And that Saturday morning was the morning where people heard the bulldozers and they rushed out of camp, and they rushed to the area that the bulldozers were desecrating sacred burial sites, and they were met by attack dogs, tear gas, and so without completing the environmental impact study on that area and acknowledging the fact that the Sioux had done their due diligence and were filing paperwork asserting the fact that there were sacred burial sites in the pathway of the pipeline, that was dismissed and ignored, and the bulldozers went in.
They went ahead anyway.
Yeah. And people stepped in to physically block the bulldozers, and they were attacked by attack dogs, and that was motivation enough to go. And what ended up happening making our decision to go final was the night of November 20th. There were barricades set up on Highway 1806, which feeds traffic to the casino, and Standing Rock Sioux Tribe gets a majority of their revenue from the casino proceeds, and the highway leading to the casino was blocked by barricades. Dakota Access Pipeline had the National Guard, and over the entire, I think it was 6 months of the water protectors camps that were set up, I think there were something like 54 different police jurisdictions and police departments that had sent equipment, reinforcements to the Morton County Police. So they had set up a barricade on the bridge, which became known as the Backwater Bridge, and one of the elders had met with Morton County Police and the Dakota Access Pipeline officials on that bridge, and they shook hands over the agreement to take down the barricades. And one of the main reasons being that if someone was injured, it would take an ambulance an additional 40 minutes to an hour to detour to medical facilities. So in a medical emergency, people's lives were at risk, and they got assurances, verbal assurances, and a handshake that the bridge, all the concrete barricades and the razor wire would be taken down. And instead that night, word came that they were reinforcing the barricades. So people marched to the bridge on a cold November night of November 21st, and they were met with water cannons and sub-freezing temperatures, rubber bullets, concussion grenades, tear gas, and there was an elder who went into cardiac arrest, and there was a young ally, non-Indigenous woman that was hit with a concussion grenade, and the flesh was blown off her from the wrist up to her, just past her elbow. So she was defending herself. Her arm was raised in order to counteract the impact of the concussion grenade, and it exploded right next to her. Another Indigenous water protector, she lost the use of her eye. She was shot point blank, just above her, I believe, her right eye. So she lost the use. And then it was all captured on a live stream. Myron Dewey would do digital smoke signals, sent up drones to document, and the live stream that I was watching, I think at one point it had over 81,000 people watching, and this was just one live stream. And the news media was saying the next day that the water protectors had started fires, and they were using the water cannons to put out the fires. But the drone footage, the live feed, was actually showing you that people had built fires to warm people up to keep them from hypothermia, because there was no way to evacuate the people that they were exposing, the risk of hypothermia. So it was like we became the media. The links that we share, the Facebook and social media platforms became a means of instant communication, became a means of that ran counter to what was Morton County would release. They had their own Facebook page. They had a daily update, like a blog, and a lot of what they were putting on the blog and the Facebook page and making briefings to the media were untrue, and
that's
unsubstantiated. The video actually showed a lot of the exposed a lot of the misinformation that they were putting out there as truth about what was actually happening. Yeah. And so.
And was that the day that you decided to?
That was the night that we decided. An ally and another Indigenous woman who I've known for a number of years. We made up our mind to. We had what time is it? Sorry. We basically went out to bulk stores. We bought ponchos, goggles, gas masks, propane tanks, energy bars, beef jerky. We bought whatever we could in bulk. We went self-sufficiently. We brought our own food. We brought our own water, our own stove. We brought donations of clothing, things that were the camps had put out, like a supply list of things that were needed. And so we drove I think it was 1,100 miles, 36 hours straight through to get there from here to Standing Rock. And
how long did you stay there?
We were there for just a little under 4 days. And at that time, the camp was swelling to about 15,000. So at that time, it was one of the biggest population centers in North Dakota. And interestingly enough, North Dakota is the largest oil producer outside of Texas in the lower 48 states. and that's because the Bakken oil fields, which were first described in 1951.
Right.
And it's named the Bakken after Henry Bakken, a farmer whose land that the oil deposits were discovered under. So the technology didn't exist in 1951 to exploit the oil that was, discovered under it. So the technology that exists now is horizontal drilling. So they drill down to a depth of 2 miles, and then they drill horizontally, and then they inject a brine water with a number of chemicals and sand to fracture the deposits, and the strata can be in places up to 150 feet thick. So the pressures that they pump down there are enormous, and it forces the fracture of the strata of some of it's porous, some of it's non-porous, and then the porous deposits are where the oil deposits are, and they call it sweet crude. And
how did you educate yourself on all of this?
Just learning about, just becoming more curious about what are the Bakken oil fields and why North Dakota. And the pipeline is 1,134 miles long. It cuts diagonally through 4 states: North Dakota, South Dakota, Iowa, and it terminates in Illinois. And if you remember in 2013, I believe it was, the Lac Mégantic rail disaster in Quebec. It was a train car carrying Bakken oil to New Brunswick, and it took it through the town of Lac Mégantic in Quebec. Yeah. And because of the fracking process, hydrogen sulfide is a gas, and it's present. It concentrates in areas that have been fracked. So the pressure is forced to hydrogen sulfide, and it no longer becomes sweet crude. Sweet crude is a term for hydrogen sulfide free crude oil, and crude oil is just unprocessed. So it's going to these. It's a landlocked oil reserve. So that's where the transportation issues come in.
And with the rail disaster, they were like, let's build a pipeline to get around that.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I don't want to make you late for your meeting with Tallow. Yeah. Do you mind do you know where you're going?
No, I don't.
I'm headed that way.
So
I can show
okay,
you that.
Very cool.
Actually, I was wondering.
Yep.
Maybe we could do like something where we continue talking.
Yeah.
And recording while walking.
Oh, that'd be cool. Yeah.
Is
there a restroom?
Yeah, there should be.
I forgot I had that on.
No worries. Down the hall somewhere. I'm not familiar with this particular building.
Okay. Yeah, I should be able to find it. Yeah, be right back.
Yeah. No,